Welcome to this career workshop on virtual networking and grit in the job search. Today, we're going to look at a few different learning outcomes. First off, we're going to look at what networking is and what it isn't, and the importance of networking. We're also going to discuss different networking methods. We're going to really focus on virtual, but we're also going to touch a little bit on in-person as well. We're going to look at strategies for overcoming barriers to networking because we all have them. Nobody really likes networking very much. And then the final thing is that we're going to really look in depth at informational interviewing and best practices for informational interviewing. So first off is the career development life cycle. If you've come to any of our events before, you have seen this wheel. We think it's really important for you to understand where networking fits into your overall career development, especially at a time like what we're in right now. The first stage in your career development is really self-assessment. In order to best prepare yourself for your future job or career, you really need to prepare by reflecting on who you are. What do you enjoy? What things are you really passionate about? What are you really good at? Once you've got a better idea of who you are, it's time to assess the market or the target industry that you're looking at. Where do you want to go, and what do the jobs and opportunities look like? What skills do they require? We career coaches can really help you to take a look at that and really learn more about your industry. Then you're going to move on to explore and decide, maybe through classwork, maybe through conversations with faculty and other people, to really better understand how you fit in the job market. That's going to lead you to your career goals and making hopefully a decision on where you want to go with your career search. Now it's time to take action. This is the part that everybody loves. This is drafting your resume, working on your cover letter, polishing your interview skills, and applying to jobs. Once you feel like you've secured an opportunity, you are always going to want to keep an eye on managing your career. So thinking about how you're going to continue growing as a professional, how you're going to continue to position yourself for promotions, reassess whether you really like where your career is heading. But the most important thing for today's session in this wheel is the center. You're going to notice in the center there, the center of the cycle is really relationship management, and that is networking. Networking and relationships play a crucial role in your career development at every single stage, from self-assessment all the way through career management. You might have heard the phrase, it's not what you know, but who you know that gets you the job. And it's true. Very few professionals reach their career goals without the support and mentorship of other people. So let's move on to networking 101. What is networking and what is networking not? So networking is building and maintaining relationships, meeting new people, regardless of what industry, company, role they're in. It's asking for advice and sharing information. A really good way to think about networking is it's going to take the same skills that you use to make new friends. When you make a new friend, you ask questions, you learn more about their life experience, you show interest in them, you have experiences with them, you make memories with them, either on the phone, in person, and keep in mind, to make a friendship, you follow up. So networking isn't asking everyone that you meet for a job. It isn't about handing out your business card and just hoping that people will call you back. And finally, it isn't a one-time interaction with somebody. Networking is really building and maintaining a mutually beneficial relationship. It's essential that you think of this as a two-way street. You are also going to be offering advice and lending a hand to the people that you meet. So, networking is really just relationship building. And in the long run, networking is really going to help you to explore career opportunities, to clarify your life goals, your professional goals. It's going to help you learn about a major, an industry, a company. It's going to help you better understand the skills that you need for a particular field or position. It's going to help you choose classes for future semesters. It's going to help you interact with people inside and outside of your circle. And it's going to allow you to give back to these people in your network. But the thing to keep in mind is networking is about learning. It's the real focus is just on learning as much as you can. So next thing we're going to do is take about a minute and just think about who is in our network. You don't, you can write down the names of people, but you can also just write down categories of people. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds to write down as many people, as many groups as you possibly can. So go. Okay, great. So I hope you got a great big long list, but here's just a few categories. A lot of times when people think about networking, they only think about industry professionals, people that they've met in a very formal sort of way. But in reality, your network is going to be filled with people from not only your professional life, but also from your personal life. It's going to be people that you've met here at SPS, your classmates, the faculty. It's going to be people that you previously worked with, people that you currently work with. It's going to be groups that can add value to your job search, but might have absolutely nothing to do with your professional life, like your family, friends. So keep that in mind. So the next question we get asked a lot is, where should I network? And that's particularly tricky at this point in time when so many of us are remote. So the first thing that we want to talk about is just, networking can be done virtually, by phone, and in person. In person is probably the way that a lot of us are most comfortable, but we've been virtually networking for years. LinkedIn is essentially virtual networking. So there's nothing new here about the way that we're going to virtually network. There's a lot of different ways that we can network. There's a lot of different places that we can network, and a lot of different people that we can network with, even just virtually. So, the NYU alumni network, and also think about your undergraduate alumni network, which a lot of people forget when they start graduate school. Another great place, like I've mentioned, is social media. LinkedIn and using Handshake are brilliant ways to network with people. And also, while you're working from home right now, take a little bit of time and update and really get that LinkedIn profile and that Handshake profile in great shape. Other places that you can network are virtual, as well as hopefully one day again in-person events. NYU Wasserman Center has plenty of events. There's alumni events for NYU all the time. And again, think about your undergraduate program and their alumni events. There's career fairs, there's industry events, and professional association and professional conferences are fantastic places to network. And just give some thoughts to other places that you might network. And also, ask your classmates, where do they network? Ask your friends and your family, where do they network? So some networking best practices. First thing is, start early. Ideally, networking starts before you're actively job searching, but if you are in the process of looking for a job or an internship for the coming semester, it's never too late to start. So just get started now. Goal setting is a really important part of networking. Create a target list. Identify industries, companies, academic areas, research topics that you're interested in to really help structure who you're going to reach out to. Have a goal for every conversation that you have. That can be as broad as, I want to gain insight about an industry, or it can be as specific as, I want to learn about this particular person's research. broad or specific, doesn't matter. Just make a goal for your conversation. The next bit is make a coaching appointment. A coaching appointment is a great place to prepare your pitch. So you can come to the Wasserman Center and see us. We have 30-minute coaching appointments. Each of us see about 20 students a week, and you're also able to come in and do 15-minute drop-in appointments Monday through Friday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day. And that's, 15 minutes is a great period of time to practice your pitch. A pitch is really going to vary. We have some other sessions that really focus on a pitch, but there's the 10-second elevator pitch. There's a 30-second pitch that you can use in a lot of networking situations. And then there's also the 2-minute pitch that you're going to want to really really make strong for your interviewing. The next thing to think about is starting the conversation. It's going to differ whether you're virtually networking or if you're networking in person. Virtual networking, starting the conversation is going to be a bit simpler because you already know who you're going to be talking to and hopefully what you're going to be talking about. Whereas starting a conversation in person can be a little bit trickier. But, essentially you're going to be introducing yourself, your name, relevant information about yourself, just to kind of get that conversation with the other person started. Also keep in mind when you're starting a conversation, listening is just as valuable as speaking. So be sincere and give the other person time to also talk and make sure you're giving them your complete attention. Set reasonable expectations for yourself as well as the person that you're talking to. Don't be discouraged if, after you have a quick pitch conversation with somebody, you don't hear back from them straight away. Often it can take somebody weeks, days, months to get back to you. They're going to be busy. If someone is just continually not responding to you, just accept that. They just may not have the time to connect with you right now. Another thing that I want to mention here, I've mentioned it before, don't ask for a job on your first interaction. Really focus your networking on gathering information, relationship building, seeking advice. Another thing to think about when you're networking is move that conversation along. A phone call, a Zoom conference with somebody, you're not going to want it to last for much longer than 10 or 15 minutes. If you meet somebody in person at a conference, 2-3 minutes, that's probably about as long as you're going to have before somebody else wants to step in and start talking to that person. So make sure that you're showing genuine interest, you're asking open-ended questions so that they can give you detailed responses. So make sure the conversations go moving along, but don't try to keep it going forever. So learn how to exit a conversation politely and quickly. Politely wrap up a conversation by outlining your next steps. For example, say, it was really nice to talk to you. I hope you don't mind if I follow up by connecting with you on LinkedIn or by sending you an email, whatever is the best way to connect with that person. And then the last thing is follow up with that person. Do connect with them on LinkedIn. And if you can send them a thank you note by email, by LinkedIn, or even, a little paper thank you card, absolutely do it. Those are all best practices for networking. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is networking barriers. And this is where the grit or resilience in your job search really comes in. So resilience or grit is really the ability to bounce back and keep going. We're definitely in some interesting and challenging times right now. So it's a really good idea right now to really work on your resilience, especially as it relates to networking. So the first thing to keep in mind is find some coping strategies or some self-care routines that really work for you. In talking with students, a lot of them are exercising a little bit more. They're having Zoom chats with their friends and their family. They're meditating. Find what works for you and start trying to do it every single day. A really great thing to do is also just learn to focus on the things that you have control over. Try not to stress about the things that are out of your control. I know it's easier said than done, but it is an important component of having resilience. Create and stick to a regular job search routine. This can be setting aside 2 hours a day to focus on your networking. It can be making sure that you have that every day at lunch you do a little bit of networking in one way or another, but just really set a structured plan for yourself to work on your job search. And some some components of that would be setting goals, having a sense of purpose for your job search, and really creating micro actions that can keep your job search moving along. Some examples of that are, one of the most important aspects of networking is really following up and staying in touch with people. One way to do that is to create a spreadsheet or some other way of tracking your networking contacts and all of the interactions that you've had with them or hope to have with them. Have periodic check-ins, but with a purpose with your network. You can use those periodic check-ins to provide updates to them, to congratulate them on accomplishments. If you know that they had a big presentation that they were giving, you can send them a quick note and find out how that presentation went. Share relevant articles with them, or just send them a holiday greeting or a congratulations about something. Those are all really good ways to stay connected. Another kind of micro action or goal that you can have at this point in time is to look at different places that you might be able to volunteer your virtual assistants. There are places out there that can use your free help right now. Nonprofits are still in need of having volunteers, whether virtually or in person. So see what you can do that kind of aligns with your career path, is a good way to meet people, and also, kind of keeps you busy. And another thing to do to really keep your resilience up and to really help you bounce back is get a support system and lean on them a little bit. When you talk to people, when you have informational interviews or formal interviews, ask for feedback. Find out how you can do better in the next conversation. Find yourself a mentor. That can be a faculty member, it can be a more senior classmate, it can be a former coworker. And finally, another support system for you is the Wasserman coaches. Make sure that you make those appointments to come in and talk to us. So a lot of people really have issues with networking, and we hear a lot of different barriers to networking, and these are just some of them. How do I virtually network? My network is back at home. I don't know what to say. I feel awkward. I feel like I'm using people. I don't feel like I have anything to give in return. This would be weird in my home country. And I'm sure you've got a few networking barriers of your own. So some of the things to keep in mind are really, you don't have to be an extrovert to be a good networker. And that's especially true at this point in time when we're all trying to network virtually. Networking is actually kind of tough for everybody, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. But, networking virtually could actually be a bit easier for introverts than, walking up to somebody at a conference or at a mixer is. The second myth is really networking is just all about sales, self-promotion, and being salesy. We talked about this in an earlier slide. Instead of thinking about networking as blatant self-promotion, think a bit about it as a two-way street. Think about how you might be able to benefit that person that you're talking to. We hear a lot of senior professionals who actually tell us that junior colleagues are more knowledgeable about current trends than they are. Think about it. You have just come out of a cutting edge master's program or a bachelor's program, and you may actually know more about the cutting edge trends than your more senior colleagues. You guys are also going to have some really fresh ideas and new perspectives. Think about yourself as kind of being at the forefront of your field, maybe even a little more than these senior people that you're going to be talking to. And also, as someone who is more junior and perhaps a younger generation, you may have other things to offer. You may have much stronger skills with technology. You may know kind of the newest apps that you could teach to your more senior colleagues. So keep all those things in mind and know that, you really do have something to give back. And the last myth is really that networking is only effective for people who have career goals in mind and who are currently seeking employment. That's just simply not true. Networking is actually a great way to start doing those things. It's a great way to find your career path and to start looking for employment. Networking, like I said in a previous slide, is all about learning. And this can be the place where you learn about maybe career paths that you didn't even know about or companies that you've never even heard of. So keep that in mind. So informational interviews are a really phenomenal way of networking. And something to keep in mind for right now is informational conversations can be happening right now while so many of us are working remotely. A lot of us are sitting at home and we've got a spare 10 minutes where we can get on the phone and do an informational interview with a more junior colleague. So really keep that in mind right now. It's not going to be a burden for folks. In fact, it could be something that kind of gives them a little bit of, gives them an interesting 10 minutes in their day that they just weren't expecting. So the basics of informational interviewing, they're going to allow you to cover a whole lot of information. They're going to help you explore opportunities, job search strategies, organizations, industries, all the stuff that we've been talking about on this presentation. As I mentioned previously, they're going to be short, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, depending on the availability of the person that you're talking to. They're going to take really valuable time from that person. So it's important to let the person that you're trying to schedule the interview with, it's important for you to let them choose the day and the time that's best for them so that they're the most relaxed. They've got the most time available. They're the most willing to talk to you. Again, I know this is the third time I'm saying it. Informational interviews are about gaining insight and getting advice. They are not about asking somebody for a job. So please don't use informational interviews for that. It's important for you to do a little bit of research before your informational interview. So be prepared. Know a little bit about that person, a little bit about their company, a little bit about their industry before you have that phone call with them. And finally, the thing that you can do at the end of an informational interview, if you feel like it went really well, ask that person if they would recommend that you talk to someone else. Can they recommend someone else at their company? Can they recommend someone else at in their industry? Is there just someone else that you should talk to that they wouldn't mind putting you in touch with? So those are all the basics. Now, the specifics. Even though these are going to be happening virtually for the moment, be really mindful of your attire. Try not to show up in your pajamas or, your animal onesie. Try to dress professionally. And on that note, make sure that the background is professional. Try not to have your informational interviewer looking at a bright light or a bright window behind you. Try to make that background nice and neutral. Try to make sure that there's not too much noise around you or outside of your conversation. A best practice is have a Zoom link or some sort of technology as the first choice, but have an alternate technology as a backup just in case something goes wrong. An interesting idea is to come up with kind of a unique icebreaker question to get to know that person just a little bit better. You want that icebreaker question to be professional, but you also want it to be something a little bit unique that will make them hopefully really remember you. So some ideas for that are, what are you reading right now? If you could pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be? Who's the person that you really admire? What's the best advice you've ever received? And then also, do you have a favorite charity that you wish more people knew about? These are all going to be things that, as linked to this next bullet point, those are all questions that are also going to help you build a genuine connection with those people that you're talking to. On the point of building genuine connections, make sure that you ask how they're doing. This is such a stressful time for everybody. Make sure you start that conversation with a really genuine ask about how they are, how their family is, and so on. And then a final kind of optimistic note is mention to them that you would love to take them out for a coffee when we're all kind of back to normal. So try to plan a coffee chat with them. Let's hope in May, June, or July. Now, questions that we often get about informational interviews are, what sorts of questions should I ask in an informational interview? We've got a lot of material about this on Handshake, but just a few basics are things like, how did you get started in this field? How did you get started at this company? What personality traits or characteristics do people in this field really value? What's a typical entry-level position in this company, in this field, in this industry? Those are real quick, basic questions that you can ask on an informational interview. But again, on Handshake, you can find a lot of resources that will give you additional informational interviewing questions. So for the last slide, I'm just going to mention a couple of points about the time that we're living in right now, informational interviews and the novel coronavirus. During your informational interview, or during this process of when you're networking, do take the time to reach out to your current contacts and find out how they are doing. This is a really lovely time to let people know that you're thinking about them and to just check in. When you're talking to people, feel free to ask what they foresee as the short and long-term implications of the coronavirus on their industry, in their company, on their field. But do not ask about layoffs that might be happening at their company, layoffs that they see happening in their industry. Try to focus your informational interviews more on those positives, although again, you can talk about the short and the long-term implications. Just try not to focus on terminology like layoffs. So that's the end of our presentation on networking and grit for today. If you've got extra questions, feel free to get in touch with the NYU SPS Wasserman Center. Any of our coaches would be happy to give you additional advice on this topic, and we hope that we see you soon.